Listen, delighted to see you all here. And Colette has just started recording. Delighted to see everybody here. As Colette said, this is the 8th in our Master Series. And I suppose the idea of introducing the Master Series was really because the PR, the communications industry that we're in, has changed so much, and communications has become so broad, and you need so many different skills. And one of the crucial skills that Charlene is addressing today is digital. And in my head anyway, most people have some digital ability. So do we do something? We use some platforms. We have a platform that we prefer, that we go back to each time. In my case, it's LinkedIn. I just like LinkedIn because they're real people. But when you're looking at dealing with a wider audience where you're trying to figure out, so who are the people I'm trying to reach from a business point of view, and how do I reach them? How do I get, what kind of content are they interested in, and how do I engage them? Because otherwise I'm just throwing stuff out there. And one of the big differences when Charlene and I first met, and she's now come on board as a trainer with us, but when Charlene and I first met, her expertise from a New Zealand base, which applies globally, is looking at what people do and saying, here's where you put a strategy around it. Here's the most important people that you reach out to, and here's how you really ace those digital tools. And a huge amount of the training that she does with us and with the PR institutes in both Australia and New Zealand is around empowering people who are already in communications, who feel they should know more, but don't know as much as they should. I'm not going to give you much more about her background because I'm sure she'll introduce herself much better than I could. I can tell you that she is a Kiwi, so she's from New Zealand. She is a super nice person. I really enjoy working with her. And she has probably forgotten more about digital PR than most of us will ever know. So Charlene, on that note, I'm going to hand over to you, and we're all looking forward to some brilliant insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, for that lovely introduction. I'm going to take that recording and listen to it again. It's a lovely intro to what I do. But like, for me, I love what I do, but I'd like to sort of say up front, I'm just a comms person like you guys that got very curious about things a few years ago and sort of ended up going on my own journey of discovery, because back then, and I'll get into this in a minute, I sort of felt like things were changing so quickly, and I felt like I was getting left behind. So for my own sort of sanity, to check that I was doing everything that I should be, I sort of went down a few rabbit holes and learned a whole lot of things, and has sort of decided to put it together and into a course. So it's gone very well, and it's become my full-time gig now, which I never thought would actually be the case. But to just give you a bit of background on me, before digital PR, I've started in the days of faxing out press releases, was in a little PR office, and really have sort of moved through a range of different industries. I've worked in, obviously in New Zealand, in my home country, in the UK, and also in the Middle East. I've lived in Qatar for 4 years, which was a really interesting experience in terms of communications. I obviously have partnered with the PR Training Academy and the Global Institute of Public Relations, which I'm very excited about what that will bring in the next few years. And I also am a trainer for PRINS, and which is the Public Relations Institute in New Zealand, as Ellen said, and also the Institute in Australia. One of the things that I'm really concerned about globally, I work with clients all around the world, and what I'm seeing is students of comms and PR are still not coming out as capable as I would expect them to be in terms of the digital space. And there's still a lot of work that needs to go into some of the tertiary institutions to bring that next generation of comms people through to really understand how to leverage all of these amazing different channels. Like for me, I think we're in the best time we could be for a comms person or PR, or even as a writer, because we have so many different channels that we can reach our audiences for too. But the trouble is, our audiences are so fractioned right now. Everyone chooses their own channels. It's harder than ever before at the same time. So we need to all, as an industry, really understand how to leverage all of the channels and drive your audiences in the right way to get the right actions. It's not just about column inches or media anymore and content. It all has to marry together. And that's one of my passion points, and something that over the next few years I really want to address is the new generation coming out of the universities. So my digital transformation, as I mentioned before, started about 6 years ago. I was head of corporate communications for a large mobile company in New Zealand. I had the best job in the world. I had young kids at the time. I was able to run my life the way that I wanted in terms of, you know, picking up my kids from school. Was very highly paid, but as I said before, I felt like I was getting left behind. Still getting good results from things that I already knew that to do with media and communicate to different stakeholders and things, but with digital being sort of layered on top of each other, things didn't feel quite right. And at the same time, I remember sitting alongside the marketing team where digital was really becoming a thing. Their team was expanding like crazy, and my budget and my team resource stayed the same. And we were always the ones that were wheeled out to sort of deal with the issues, and content was becoming everybody's game within the organisation. So it was confusing. There was social media managers, there was chief storytellers, then there was my comms team, and it's like, well, where do we all fit together, and how do we do this in a way that we're all rowing in the same direction? It was confusing. So that's where I went on my journey of discovery. And at one point, it was overwhelming. I sort of went down a few rabbit holes, found some amazing people in the States and also in the UK, which set my thinking around layering up the channels and driving your audiences in the right way. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I find with comms people, even to this day when I'm coaching them, is we create this content, we put it out, and then there's either crickets or we think job done. But you really have to work hard to actually drive audiences to get the right behaviors and actually measure it more than we do now. And, you know, my biggest fear is if we don't change and evolve our industry and what we do, and actually stand up and actually be very clear about some of our genius signs, what I call genius signs, some of the things that we do every day that has a huge impact on where a brand or your clients actually turn up online. I think a lot of people don't realize just how valuable some of the things that we do are to the overall appearance and visibility of brands, and how they turn up to the right audiences at the right time. So that was one of my big issues that I wanted to solve when I started looking at digital PR. Before I get into really defining digital PR and again, I'll say, I'm just like you guys, I'm just a comms person that has spent hundreds of hours trying to figure this out. But before we get into that, I've just got a few questions for you just to have a little ponder about, because it's really interesting when I, in my workshops, when I put these questions up, how, like, I think we're so busy. A lot of the time comms people have so much on their plate. There's stuff coming from at us from all directions, especially if you're in-house or, you know, you've got different clients wanting different things. We never sort of get to step back and go, hang on a minute, what are we actually trying to achieve here? And yes, we all set strategies, but actually stopping and asking a few questions. The first thing that I would ask is, what does your organization or your client's digital footprint actually look like right now? And it's one of the things that we actually don't do enough of, is as comms and PR people, we are reputation managers for the brands that we work for. Yet we're so focused sometimes on one or other channel, whether it's a social media channel or working with media, that we never actually step back and go, I'm going to take a 10,000 foot view right now. And if a cold audience came in to look at the brand and do some research on their own, what would they see right now? As the reputation manager for the brands that I'm working for, am I happy with what they see right now? Am I happy with what they find when they're searching for us, not only on social media networks, but also in search, when they Google not only the name of the organization, but also anything related to the brand's footprint or whatever they specialize in. And it's amazing what you can actually sort of discover, and it's not something that needs or should be left for other people to do. We need to be able to understand how that whole thing works and how a brand turns up in the right places, or not, or sometimes not in the right places, and then look to actually use content to get to where you want the brand to be turning up in the right places. And I'll get to how you do that later on, but it's just one of those questions that sometimes I see when I'm doing workshops. You see people sort of quietly Googling their company's name, and we shouldn't just do that every now and again. We need to be really monitoring that, because you know, we're in charge of that, and we have every ability to actually change what people see and how to influence them when they're looking at brands, when they're doing their own research. Second question is, what do you actually want your audiences to think, see, feel, or do with your comms? It's one thing to report something and you know, announce something or create a piece of content, but overall, what is it that you're actually wanting your audiences to do, and what sort of action do you want them to take, and how, like, thinking about the journey. Marketers are really smart at thinking about the full journey. And like, I don't know why comms people don't do the same, because at the end of the day, we are going after audiences to get them to do something, whether it's to do something, to think something, to whatever it is, whatever action it is. There's always an end action, and we're not measuring that as well as we should. There are lots of people that are doing great work, and I think to add a layer on that, to understand what people do with your work after it goes out and goes live, is one of those things that we need to continuously work on, because there are so many new opportunities to measure our work and actually show the true value of what we do, more than just the end result of column inches or something going out in the moment and getting a few likes or an extra few followers. To me, that's not success. It's about driving people to take the right actions and actually measuring that to an end point. And the last question is, how does the way that you activate your work actually connect with how audiences react, and then how you measure that? And it's sort of related to that second question, but I'm still yet to see an agency or an in-house team really be clear on, with the work that they're doing every day, because there's lots of stuff coming in at them all the time, and a lot of the time it's always urgent from other parts of the business. How does that all marry up to get to the right actions and the right success measures that we're actually all should be going after and focusing on? So, you know, if you have a few spare moments in the next day or so, I'd really encourage you to sit down and write those down in a notebook and actually really think through. That first question, that digital footprint, for me is key, and that's where I started my journey a few years ago, is really working out, what am I in charge of? What do I do that has a huge impact on where the brand that I was working for at the time, where it turns up, and what do I want them to see? And that's where I started learning about leveraging content, own content, and then using all the amazing channels that we have available to us. Now, I talked about this before. When I started over 20 years ago, we didn't, you know, we had owned and we had earned, but we didn't have shared, and that only came along about 10 years ago, when we actually started really getting serious about having direct conversations with our audiences on social. And it's an amazing development over the years, and we can do so much with it. But again, media and social media are just two channels in the mix. Owned, and then for me, search comes into it more than ever now, because there's a certain behaviour that's developed, particularly in the last few years since COVID, that people do their own research quite thoroughly before they make any sort of decision on anything. And the higher the price point, the more they will research. So we need to be thinking about more than just media and social media and whatever content you're creating. We also have to think about where that's going to turn out and turn up down the track, and actually give all of our hard work. Like, it takes a lot to actually create good quality stories that get cut through with audiences. We want to make sure that we give it longevity, and it is able to be available and turning up in the right places for the audiences that you want to be turning up in front of, long after you go live, within the first week or the first few days of that campaign, or whatever it was, the announcement, whatever it was. So this for me is sort of where I've landed. We have to really leverage all of the different channels. It's no longer just about media. You know, when I started, that was the only means of communicating directly with our audiences, through media. Now it's about leveraging social and then driving audiences through and making sure that whatever stories you are telling, things are turning up in the right places when they search for it as well. So there's no doubt about it, things have changed dramatically, and it's changed our roles as well as every other industry, for pretty much everyone. And we're so lucky with comms, because now we've got more channels than ever before to be able to obviously find the right audiences, and they're super smart. With a bit of paid, you can find the right audiences and be in front of them within, you know, a few seconds. So what I want to really emphasize today is we are the original storytellers. As the public relations industry, we've been around for over 100 years, and you know, it's really only in the last 5 to 7 years that other industries such as marketing and digital and SEO have really realized the value of storytelling. And we need to sort of claim that patch and sort of step up and actually really understand how that whole thing that we do actually helps grow a brand's visibility, reputation and trust. You know, we are the natural authentic storytellers and reputation managers, and we also do a lot of work around influencing key stakeholders. So understanding how to leverage those channels better than just putting everything out. And I'm not saying that you guys do, but I've worked with clients all around the world, and we're not going far enough, in my experience, with working with hundreds of comms people, with actually understanding how it all works together, making sure it fits together well before it's actually activated, and then measuring it and showing the true value of the work that we do. Obviously, it's disrupted a lot of the things that we have done in the past, and you know, it's not every week I come across people going, you know, it keeps me awake at night, not really understanding if we're going far enough, are we doing the right things? It's an issue that most comms people that I work with, they say the same thing. So for me, it's about really understanding what our audiences are doing. People are highly connected, they're always on and really in control now of where they get their information from. It's a two-way conversation constantly. No longer do we, you know, that traditional marketing comms, we used to talk at people. Now people expect value and something in return. The thing, it's sort of, things have been turned around, and the audiences are really in charge of you know, where they get their information from. And if they're not getting value from a brand, or following someone, a brand on social media, or in a search, then they will quickly revise their search and go and find someone else that provides that value. So we really have to look at what we are providing, and it's a real intersection between what a brand wants to talk about and say externally, and what our audiences want. And that comes down to data. And this is the thing that I am really loving with the digital age, is there is so much data available to us. A lot of it is for free, that we can really understand what our audiences want and create good campaigns and good quality authentic content that delivers to what they want. And you will see, once you do that, the great uptake you will get for people doing what you are wanting them to do for you. So as I said, people are now highly connected. They're always on. We've got phones in our pockets, and you know, I think there was a stat that said there's like 60% of people actually have their phone on their bedside table at night. So we're not far away from information, and audiences pick and choose where they get their information from, and it's multiple channels. So as much as digital has provided these amazing channels, it's also harder to keep people engaged. So we have to be very smart at how we use content, mainly through using data to understand, again, what they want, and then providing the right information to send them on a journey. You know, people make decisions based on their own research now. And over the years, I've really followed analytics and what people do once things go live. And the same pattern happens pretty much for any industry or organization I've worked with, and I'll go into that in a minute. So we have to really evolve what we do to keep driving people to complete and do what you want them to do, because they are making decisions based on what they see and what they get at their fingertips, and that's what builds trust. So we have to be thinking about that journey. But it all comes down to that authentic content, and the best authentic story really wins. And oh, by the way, if anyone wants these slides, there's a lot of slides, because I love it when people want them afterwards. I'm happy to send these slides to you rather than you making notes, and if you want to kind of give your hand a rest. So very happy to send these to anyone that wants them. Now, if we step back and have a look at kind of what's happened over the last crazy few years, who would have thought all of the different things that have happened over the last few years would have kind of been squished into 2.5, 3 years. There's been social, political, economic, you name it, we've been through it in the last few years, which, as I've said, has really changed the way people behave on digital. They're more reliant on digital than ever before, but they also, again, have this pattern that they see a brand or something on one channel, and then they will go into their own research just to build trust that whatever they're looking at, whether it's something to buy or to vote or whatever it is, social, political, economic, whatever, they will do their own research, and we need to cater for that as comms pros now. And the thing I love about that is, even though there's been some huge issues that globally we've all had to deal with, I think the value of communications has finally been realised, which makes me happy. If you look at over the last few years, you know, organisations have had to really step up and be very transparent and clear about where they stand with some of these issues, and also what they do internally. They have to pull back the velvet rope and actually really tell stories, authentic stories about their organisation. And at the heart of that is our comms teams that are driving that. It used to be, when I was sort of a junior, that comms was seen as a bit of a cost to the balance sheet. But now with digital, we can show the true value of what we're doing and show it with the way that audiences, you can clearly see that audiences are reacting the way that you want them to, thanks to digital. So I love it. We can prove our worth more than ever before. But the key here is, at the heart of everything, is we need to become our own multimedia channel and see the brand, and also right down to your client or your organisation's website as the most valuable asset that they own, and we need to really leverage that. It's not just an information repository that your press releases get put up on. We really need to understand the value of it and how to work it all together with social and media to actually grow more visibility and trust for brands. If you go back a little bit, it's got a bit confusing too. Everybody's kind of doing a little bit of everything now. So as I said earlier, marketers and SEO pros have realized the value of storytelling, and everyone's doing it because they know that when you tell authentic stories, you get cut through with your audiences if you're delivering what they want. But for me, you know, we hold the keys to some of the most valuable levers. One is media, but we have to go a little bit further with the way that we use media. It's not just getting the story out. We have to think about, what do we need from media in the digital world to actually help grow visibility? And I'll get into that later on. There is so much information going out on any given day. I remember in 2020, the World Health Organization, when they were really trying to communicate about COVID, they called it an infodemic, and that was within a few months of the pandemic happening, because everyone is now their own editor and their own expert on everything, and they've got you know, channels at their fingertips to create content and conversation around. So it is quite hard for comms people to really keep control of the story, but if you don't, someone else will fill that void. So we can't ignore that growing that digital footprint with good quality, authentic stories about a brand, because I tell you what, when things hit the fan and you're in crisis mode, what you want is a good body of content that's able to be found by people that are interested in what's happening to your organization or to your client. If you haven't done the groundwork and something a crisis happens, then we all know how it happens. People fill the void, and it's hard to control the message. So a lot of this, the focus is on where content is and where it's ending up, and we need to be more aware of that. Obviously, fake news has tarnished the whole media industry over the last few years, and a lot of people are actually getting their news elsewhere. Like, I've got teenagers, and goodness, the amount of news that they get off their social media networks before they see it on news, like traditional news sites, is phenomenal. Like, we're on different opposite time zones. So when poor Queen Elizabeth died a few weeks ago, I woke up and my daughter was saying, "Mum, the Queen's died," because she saw it on TikTok. Traditional media is not sort of the base of what we should be really relying on these days. It's every other channel as well, and people are getting their news from social media. And on the other side of that, journalists are also getting their news from social media. Things have become quite fractioned in terms of not only what they see as news, but also where they get their sources from. Talking of media, so much has changed since I started in PR over 20 years ago. Some of the things that make the news threshold on the front page and the front section on digital is phenomenal. It's all about people, and a lot of it's off social media. There's a lot of other people vying for journalists' attention, and there's less journos in newsrooms. So we can't rely on them anymore to actually tell our story. We've got to take charge and create more of a multimedia hub ourselves, and control and really leverage how our audiences find that information. There's obviously less working journalists, and they've got smaller contact lists, and what they're actually doing is actually searching online for experts related to some of the stories that they're writing on. So if your organisation or the people that you represent aren't front and centre, and I'm talking first page of search as well as on social media and within the media, if they're not in all of those places, you're going to lose opportunities big opportunities to be in front of the audiences that you want to be in. So thinking about that, journalists are constantly searching for thought leaders and experts online. And if you're not there, your competitors or somebody else will be, and we miss out. So the other thing for me that's one of my bugbears is I think social media has become such an insatiable beast of a thing that people are constantly just posting stuff, and there's no real plan as to how that all adds up, and what does it all kind of mean for the audience, that cold audience that comes in and wants to understand more about the brand. There doesn't seem to be too much of a plan between what happens with media, social media, and also where it ends up in search as well. And a lot of the time for me, it's kind of like feeding a child junk food. Not that that's bad, but all the time is not great. And we need a better plan in terms of understanding where it's all going to end up and how our audiences are going to find it. Once it goes out on social media, you get that initial uplift of interest, but after a day or two, you see the interest go down again. So there's lots of issues that are kind of incoming, even though it's a very exciting time to be a comms professional. Reaching people is quite easy. We've got access to a direct line to our audience now, rather than just relying on journalists to tell our story. But it's harder than ever before, because we're now in the search and scroll mentality. I look at my kids and they've got no patience whatsoever. I think, if they don't find what they're looking for straight away, they revise their search and they're gone. There's been research that says that people's attention spans have been reduced from, I think, 12 seconds down to 8 seconds, and that's less than a goldfish. And there's other studies that say it's down to about 2.7 seconds. So we've got a split couple of seconds to really engage people, and what they're looking for is keywords that interest them, and images, and obviously video is key to that as well. So it's about bringing that all together, and there's so much opportunity to do that. For me, like really defining digital PR, it took me a long time, and honestly, it did my head in. I wanted to go back to the old traditional way of doing things, because it's difficult. It's a lot more work to understand the data, what people are wanting, how you leverage all of this, and how you monitor it. But if we take a step back, a lot of the things that we do already as comms people, that traditional stuff, doesn't change. It's just adding in a few extra steps and growing those skills. We'll see a marked difference in actually what results you get over a period of time. I tried to do this all at once, and at one point I had like one of my sliding doors in my dining room, I had like hundreds of post-it notes of all the things that I could add into the digital PR process. And I've managed to nail it down to 5 key things now, lots of little processes in those 5 key things, which I'll take you through later on. But if you start slowly and just start thinking about, okay, from a 10,000 foot view, where is my brand? What are they looking like now from a cold audience perspective? And where do I want them to be? And then start moving it along and leveraging content to do that, as well as your external channels. If we step back and really look at all of the things we do as comms pros, there's so much that we do, but like all of these things have the opportunity to actually grow visibility, reputation, and trust. It's just really all about curating good, valuable stories that turn up in the right places to the right audiences. You know, the old school way of doing it, when I started, we were reliant on media, but it's like you're fishing in a giant sea of people trying to find just the select few out of that large sea of people that would be interested in what your brand has to say. These days we can go direct to them if we know how to leverage it and know what they're looking for and get in front of them with the right content. So digital PR and reputation management online is all of that traditional PR stuff. Plus, it's really about leveraging that content to create a longer term omnipresence across your channels. So you turn up when audiences are searching for it long after that content or your stories or whatever you're doing at the time goes live. And it also, because of that, if you're leveraging the right channels in the right way, you can actually grow a brand's online authority so it can turn up in more places related to the things that it's an expert in. So it's a real mishmash of traditional PR, a bit of SEO, a lot of leveraging the channels, and all of that overlaid. If you've got a plan to actually understand where you want to end up, it'll actually start happening quite easily over a period of time. But you have to be consistent with what you're doing and be very clear about what your organization stands for, first of all. On top of the 3 questions that I started out this presentation on, I'd love you to also stop and think, what would be the top 2 to 4 things that I want my brands or the clients that I work on, what do I want them to be known for? Like, there's so much stuff coming at us that we have to communicate, but there's no consistency in the key themes that organizations are going after. So we end up nowhere, and we end up in the graveyard of sort of page 10 on search for some of that really amazing content that got good cut through when it went out in the moment, but it then disappeared. Where is all of that stuff? We should be understanding how to leverage that so it turns up in the right places when people are searching for it. So if you to write down what are the top 2 to 4 things that your brand stands for or wants to be seen as an expert in, and are you, if you Googled those words now, do your organizations that you represent, do you turn up in those searches? If no, we've got some work to do. If yes, yay, keep doing that and do more of it, because the more you can leverage media, social media, and your own content together, the more you will be able to find more visibility in more places online when people are searching for you. So it goes, like, digital PR goes beyond press releases and all of that what I call vanity metrics, likes and sentiment doesn't mean a thing for me. What I'm interested in is what audiences actually did with my work now, and has it got longevity? Is it going to turn up somewhere along the line when someone's searching for something related to the business or what it does? And if not, we've got some work to do. So it's taking that 10,000 foot view and being very clear about what you're going after. Because at the moment, there's a lot of people doing what I call random acts of content. very busy doing lots of stuff, but it doesn't add up to anything, and you go nowhere. You get a little uptake of interest and visibility in the moment, but then it tails off and you disappear. We want that longevity, and that's something that our industry worldwide hasn't been great at actually understanding since the digital age has actually come along and given us some amazing new tools. So we've got to go wider with our work and really understand how to leverage an organisation's digital reputation or digital footprint, and creating an omnipresence is the key to that. Now, this slide here is kind of like my huge aha moment, and it took me about a year of trying to figure this whole thing out to actually get to this very simple slide, but hopefully I can explain it in a way that you kind of have your aha moment if you haven't had it already. For me, traditional PR is what I call browse mode. Like it's with your cold, like it's communicating to cold audiences. So each day when your target audiences wake up in the morning, they're not expecting your organization in their social feeds or in the news that day. They're cold audiences ready to take on the day and any information that comes at them. But if something is interesting to them, something, a piece of news related to your organisation turns up on their feeds, they'll stop their scroll and go into a deeper dive. But that's sort of all we've ever really focused on, traditional media and social media, and then we sort of thought, job done. But there is a whole nother job to do to go, okay, when we created that press release, pitched it to media, created some stuff for social media, where is it going to go after that? What happens, and this is my aha moment, is I've tracked hundreds of organisations and their analytics over the last few years, and the same thing happens, doesn't matter what organisation it is. People will see you in browse mode, so in traditional media or social media, and then they will either click on a link and go through and whatever's in the story and absorb that, but then they will go and do their own research. You think of your own behaviours. People will see you on one channel and then go into a deeper dive if they're interested in it or are willing to take action. They'll go into search mode. So if your brand isn't turning up in the right places they're searching for, and it's not just about your brand name, it's also anything related to that topic or story, or anything related to what your organisation is an expert in. If they're not turning up on those search pages, then you're missing opportunities to tell your story, because most likely people are looking for reassurance that they can trust that brand. They'll go and research it on their own and then come through the virtual front door of your organisation, which is their website. Now, again, I never used to care about an organisation's website. It was just somewhere I'd hand off my content for someone else to load, somewhere in someone else's team, put my press releases in the news section, which would gather dust, and that was my job done. But now we have to think through, okay, with all the content, how do we talk firstly with our own content directly to our audiences, and how do we leverage that content and make sure that it has the best chance possible of some longevity, so it turns up in the right places online when people are searching for it long after it goes live on social media or just traditional media. There is a lot more work to do in this space, and a lot of it comes down to just basic SEO and understanding clearly what you're going after and being consistent with that. But we can't ignore search as a media channel now. We're all over social media and still using traditional media, but search, and I talk about Google a lot because for me it's the largest media organisation in the world, and I'll get into the stats about that shortly, but people trust what they see in Google and make their own minds up based on the research that they find about an organisation or a person or a product or whatever it is. If you're not on that front page of search, once they've seen you on one of the other channels, then you're at risk of them getting distracted with cat videos or with other organisations that are doing a better job of telling their story when they go into that deeper dive search. The interesting thing is search is a phenomenal beast as well. It has, so much more traffic than any of the other social media networks, media networks, you name it. It absolutely trumps all other channels, and we've really kind of ignored it. There's a few comms people doing SEO, but we've largely ignored it and just sort of expect that someone else will handle that, or our content turns up by accident. It shouldn't turn up by accident. We need to be very planned as to where things turn up online. If you look at in last year, Google as a search engine had like 4 times the amount of traffic of YouTube, even though it owns YouTube, but over 4 times that of Facebook. It is a ginormous channel, and it's a ginormous petri dish of information and data that you can also glean really key insights about what your audiences want and what they're doing. And it gives you all of this for free a lot of the time, which is where my course comes into it, because we talk about leveraging that and getting the right data before we even start to put strategies together. But if you look at 2021, Google was right out in front in terms of the amount of traffic and audiences that it had. Later that year, TikTok, for some reason, I think it was lockdowns and things, it actually gained a lot of traction, and at one point was seen as the top of the most popular websites. But in the last wee while, Google has obviously wrestled that back and continues to be the #1 channel that people go to and trust. Whatever comes up on that front page is trusted, and it doesn't happen by accident. There are so many algorithms and things that have been geared over the years by the likes of Google to actually figure out who is the most trusted and doing the best content on each of the subjects or topics that people are searching for. And a lot of that comes down to the work that we do, because media and social media are part of the way that it judges. All of the engagement on social media and media is being judged by Google as to whether you are trustworthy enough and your content is good enough to be put on the front page of search. So for me, there's a few extra components of digital PR that we need to layer onto our traditional PR. Obviously, I've talked a little bit about search, and I get very excited about it because it's such an untapped opportunity for us as comms professionals. But data, so much data available. A lot of it, as I said, is for free. Google wants you to create the best content on the internet and is willing to give you as much information about its audiences and what they're searching for in your lanes to help you create the best content ever. So we need to use it and leverage it more than ever. SEO is fundamental. If you're not over the basic rules of SEO, we need to get all over that and actually be in charge of it. Don't hand it off to somebody else to do, because a lot of the time when I've gone in, I'm not an SEO expert, I just know the basics. But when I go in and work with a client, I really look at getting their house in order before we start, because if their digital house is a mess from the start, we're not going to move forward and get the right outcomes. So a lot of the times I go in and have a look, and I get my SEO partner to do a little bit of an audit, and it's a complete dog's breakfast. And a lot of that amazing content that comms people have spent so much time and effort doing is just getting lost, and it's such a shame, because there's, we're losing the opportunity to tell our story on our own terms in front of the right audiences that are actually searching for us over a period of time. So SEO is fundamental. There's lots of digital tools that are available to us, and I take you through that in my course, because, and a lot of them are for free, some are for paid as well, but using the digital tools to get the data is something that we can't ignore. And you can't just go by gut feel anymore and get in a room with a team and say, what are we going to do this week on content? It's about understanding not only what audiences are searching for, but also measuring what they do with it once it goes out. Now, this next little yellow circle is a big one for me, and that's engagement and backlinks. These are the key things that are fundamental to search engines and what they're looking for. Engagement on social media is absolutely huge. It's a major endorsement. If you, engagement, and the definition of engagement for me is sharing, not likes and not followers. It's if people share your organization's content on social media, that's a huge endorsement of the brand. And, you know, every social media network is just a giant website. So the likes of Google is constantly monitoring the behavior on social media and seeing what content is being shared, who's loving that content and is willing to share it with their networks. That's a huge endorsement of a brand. The more shares you get and the more backlinks you get to your organization's website, the more your online authority grows, along with some other factors that you have to put into the digital mix. But engagement and backlinks, particularly if you can get backlinks with traditional media, and it's not an easy thing to do, but there's a way to do it, to think through how to gear your content to force a backlink into a story. So a backlink, for anyone who's wanting the definition, is a link in a story, preferably with media, that links back to something on your client or your organization's website. If you can think through the strategy, so there's a really important thing sitting on your organization's website that media can't not put a link to. So for instance, a report, an amazing huge piece of research or a report could be sitting on your website, and you pitch angles to media and link back to the larger piece of research. Don't just ask a journalist for a backlink to your homepage, because they will tell you to go jump off somewhere. It's about trying to gear your content so it sends people on a journey and gets them to your website. So when people engage with your content and share it, and when you get backlinks, two things happen. First of all, you get lots of traffic coming to your site to check you out. And second, you can grow your organization's online authority. So you actually help your organization turn up in more places for the things that matter to your organization if you're doing good content. So it has a huge impact on where your organization turns up online, particularly with the likes of the search engines. So engagement and backlinks are absolute gold dust. And then when you've got all of this working together, being able to measure it more, even just basics with Google Analytics. Hands up who actually is all over Google Analytics and is constantly monitoring what people are doing. Yeah, I mean, good. I see some hands. We need to be more over that than ever, because it tells a really good story, not only about what people did with our work, but also it informs us about what our audiences are looking for. And it's a really basic thing, but still I find every week clients aren't using it the way that they should. So I encourage you to sort of get more curious about that too. So digital strategy for me, it's all about targeting audiences in both browse and search mode now. It's not just traditional media and social media or one or the other. Everything has to work together and be consistent with the things that you're going after. Once you do that and you get some of those digital levers going, like backlinks with traditional media, the search engines see media as a really still, even though the Edelman Trust Authority and people's view of media is not as great as it used to be, the search engines still put traditional media up on a pedestal. They trust traditional media organizations, and they view them as high authority sites. So if you can get a story with media, and especially get a backlink in the story, you get huge brownie points for your brand for that, because search engines still put media organizations right up there in terms of high authority. And if they mention a brand and talk about it, it's watching all of that, and it gives your brand a lot of what I call SEO juice. It's a very simplistic way of explaining it, because I'm very conscious of time, but just know that all of the stuff that we do with media, if we just go a little bit further with what we do with it, has a huge impact on where your brand turns up online. It's not somebody else's job. We need to be all over it too. And growing that visibility through that integrated mix of channels, so owned, earned, shared and paid. I came across an amazing woman called Jenny Dietrichs. Anyone heard of her? She runs a blog called Spin Sucks, and she is based in Chicago, and she's one of the first people that started talking about this a few years ago. And it was just like a light bulb went on for me, because, you know, we have the ability to really influence a brand more than just in the moment when we go out with our stories. Gaining that online endorsement has huge long-term benefit for a brand to be seen in more places online by their audiences. And then obviously competing for page one of search takes a bit of work and a bit of planning, but it should absolutely be part of our measurement of our success these days. It's not somebody else's job. We need to be all over that and turning up in the right places when our audiences see it, are curious about us. So whether it's a proactive thing they've seen about our organisation and they've gone into a deeper dive, or they're in market for something that you offer, or there's an issue and you're all over the news media, people will go into a deeper dive about you. So you want to have a good amount, a good pot of information ready for them to consume in the right places that they would be searching for. And we need to figure all of that out and be all over it. So this is the way that I see digital PR now, that traditional PR and really looking at brand awareness and visibility in the moment, overlaying that with some link building, which SEO pros and digital marketers are all over because they know the value of it. And that's why they're pitching to media as well, because they know how valuable it is for overall how their brands turn up online to the audiences that are searching for them. Looking at driving the right traffic to your website. Again, you know, it's one thing that we don't think about, but you don't want your audiences to see your brand on social media or media and then get distracted. You want them to complete what you want them to do. You know, there's some really interesting facts about what actually happens with audiences. Only 3% of audiences will actually act or do something right now once they see a brand in the moment. Another 7% will think about it a little bit, but probably get a little bit distracted, but will say they'll come back at some stage in the near future. About 30% will do it, but not right now, and they need more warming up. So you need to be in front of them about 6 to 8 times on the same topic before they look to actually complete. And about 60% won't do anything that see your stuff, and that's okay. We're going after that 40%, and we need, there's more than just sort of a one hit on a topic or something that you want to influence someone on. You can't just put something out and think job done. It has to be consistent over time to actually warm that 37% that don't complete straight away. You know, they're marketing stats, but they still apply to us because we still, doesn't matter what organization we work for, social, political, commercial, whatever it is, we want people to do something, think, see, feel, whatever. So it takes work, and we have to be in front of people more than a few times to actually get them to do what you want to do. But you can track all that now, and you can send them to your virtual front door. You could have more information available. The more you can hold them on your website, send them on a journey with good content that's all linked together on the same topic. It's all about how we organize content in a way that not only engages audiences when they find us, but also it helps trigger some of the levers that search engines are looking for when they're trying to decide who to put up on the front page for that topic that your organization is an expert in. So it's all about becoming your own multimedia channel and then leveraging all of the channels in between. And you know, I'm very conscious of time, but I'll speed through this presentation because I know that there's some questions at the end. But we're in the driving seat with the content that we create to really leverage it to help our audiences find us, and also our brands turn up in the right places that they want to be seen as experts in. So the content and storytelling and media are key to that, and it changes the game when you actually run this all together in a process that actually helps plan it out, and you're consistently creating the right content in the right places at the right time. And we can measure it better than ever before. Going back to why search, you know, there's a lot of comms people when I first talk about this will go, well, you know, do I really need to care about it? 80 to 90% of people actually pre-research online before pretty much making a decision on anything. And obviously Google is the #1 place they go. 92% of all internet searches is via Google, 5.8 billion searches every day. And as I said, it's the largest media property by any metric you choose. Audience, you know, they just absolutely giant any other channel and globally. 80% of people who use Google only click on the organic search results. And this is where our sweet spot is, because it's the content that we're creating, that authentic stories about our brands that need to be turning up in that those search results, that organic search results that people are looking for. 67% of all clicks are on page 1 for the first 5 organic search results. So your brands need to be in there. If you're not, you need to start monitoring it and go after it. There's a way to leverage your content and plan it so it actually earns its place. Just like earning its place in a media organisation's stories that day, we need to leverage everything that we know about content and go after those top spots on page 1. Only 4% of people make it to the second page. I never do. I know my kids just revise their search and move on. So if you're getting buried with all your content on page 2 or beyond, it's the graveyard, and we're missing major opportunities. So the big thing here is people want good quality, authentic content when they're in search mode that they can trust, and we are in the driving seat to provide that. So I just want to quickly go, have we got time, guys, to just quickly finish off?
Yeah, I think we may have to skip questions because I know a few people have already had to leave. So if you want to just round it up there, absolutely.
Sure. Yep. Okay.
Hopefully
so quickly, yeah, I get so passionate about this that I could talk for hours on it. But your audience's experience of your organisation is not linear. It's really dependent on a range of different things, and we need to make sure that we are catering for those cold audiences and browse, and then warming them up and sending them along to actually make them warm audiences that want to react. The whole thing is about seeing your website as a living, breathing asset that holds your content and holds your audience. The more you can hold them there and drive them to your site, the more brownie points you'll get on top of engagement. And I'll use this as my last slide. How it all works is kind of, I've put it together in diagram form, but it took me a while to work out. So data in, creating your own content at the center, going after audiences with earned media, shared media and search, driving that traffic into your website, and then being able to measure what you got from it. And there's a range of different measurement metrics that you can use. And yeah, it's just all about understanding what people want and then what people did with it at the end. And we've got all of those tools at our fingertips. We just have to understand how to bring it all together and actually consistently create a real consistent digital footprint for our brands. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that.
Charlene. I mean, it's a huge topic and loads of content. I'm sure everybody will be delighted to be getting those slides afterwards so you can go through it all. We don't, unfortunately, have time for questions, but certainly send in any questions you have. I pass them on, Charlene. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can always do a video little message back, or I can email you back. So many questions on this topic, and you know, I'd love to help if anyone's you know, wanting to ask questions, and also come on our course at the which starts next week. Over that time, I take you through kind of the process. There's 5 steps to the process: auditing and benchmarking, understanding where your brand is right now, then going into looking at where you want to be, and then actually working out strategy, coming up with the right content plan. It's not just random acts of content. You've got to plan it across all the channels so it works together and drives audiences with the right behaviors. And then that little kind of niggly thing of SEO and how to really leverage that, and then measurement at the end as well, and activation. So yeah, I'd love to have you on there. The more people we can get behind digital PR and actually using it, the more I have a bit more faith in our industry. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things that overlap with our industry, and we need to step up and actually do more of the stuff and understand our value in the digital world to really give our industry longevity.
Thank you so much, Charlene, and Ellen, thank you, and Alex is there as well. Thanks for your help, Alex.
You're welcome.
Again, just apologies for the